Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Vision Vanguard. I am Sage from Vision, and today I have a special guest.
Hey everyone, my name is Deo. I play Neonectars.
Yeah,
I'm
uh,
also from Vision.
yeah. Dave and I met last year, and he actually got me into Vision. So this is a kind of a little nice video, right? That we're gonna be having here, a little vibe going on. So. Today we just want to talk about a few topics, starting actually with the new news today that they're making new Sentinels in Vanguard, right? So if you guys don't know, there are these 30k shield critical triggers, and they count as a Sentinel. So like, what are your like initial thoughts, Dio, when you saw this?
I'm very much a boomer, so I started playing in V series. So I've only really played with like draw PGs or grade 1 PGs thanks to premium. I know we had other Sentinels in the past with like quintet shields or something.
Yeah.
So this is our first introduction to standard for different types of Sentinels. And I think they're going to be very interested in CSUM play. We're just not sure which decks they really fit in yet.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think in a lot of decks you'll see that any deck that likes to run draws like at all, you won't see this in because running a draw Sentinel over just like a regular 5k shield draw is just a lot better. Like there's math behind that. Maybe you know more about that than I do. But decks like right now I can think of like Kagero, Claret, Grand Blue. Decks that already kind of were running 12 crit would also love to run this. And yeah. Like especially
I think it'll be interesting. Yeah, Grand Blues is like obviously Solomon has a video out. I'm sure he's gonna be talking about it. I think being able to juggle between your grade 1 PGs and this new Sentinel to crit is going to be very interesting for numbers.
Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of decks that like run these sort of grade 1 PGs because they have to run Sentinels, right? And now they have more room to actually have a good grade 1 slot. And that's actually the biggest issue is when most decks wouldn't run 12 triggers or 12 critical triggers because their grade 1s are just too valuable. And they don't want to sacrifice Sentinels, but I've seen a lot of Claret builds with 0 Sentinels, and that's sort of like the metagame where people can go. But now this kind of fixes like maybe that area, so it's interesting.
I think it'll definitely solve a lot of problems because, as you mentioned, Claret Sword in standard right now, I feel like hitting that early game crit is really important. When I was playing Riv before, the ban list, I was playing 12 crits in grade 1 PGs because I felt like hitting an early game crit makes your rewrite turn a lot more lethal. And even if it doesn't, you just pull so many cards out of their hand. By the time your turn starts up there and need making, you just go for an easy win.
Yeah.
So being able to run 12 crit confidently and not be scared of losing shield is really good.
Yeah. I guess the one thing, I'm assuming most decks won't drop heals in any situation. But with draw, you can't really run draw PGs and these crits as well. But with these new crits, it also counts as a Sentinel. Remember that? So some decks that actually just want to restrict Sentinels, you can't call it to Guardian Circle. So that's just also a weird interaction that's going on there.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting, right? So if you're facing against like Tom decks or anything like in premium, like Ichi Tom, it also restricts your triggers. So both of their restricts, either restricting triggers or restricting Sentinels will hit that card.
Yeah, exactly.
So, that'd be interesting.
And also with draw triggers, we have defensive triggers, right? And it's really underrated how good a defensive draw is. And I think as well as I'm seeing, they're actually making more draws in the trial decks. So you might be seeing also 12 draw builds. So that's also the other thing.
Be the second set. 12 draw builds because you're assuming they'd run a Sentinel draw PG and then the 2 sets of new draws.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting.
That's very interesting in Vanguard. Yeah. As in V. So in standard. Oof.
I think the math would be very weird, right? Because essentially you'd be sacrificing like 80k shield value in your deck, but then you have extra cards in hand. So that can mean full boards early game. And obviously defensively, hitting draws are still really good. It doesn't change your math for how often you hit triggers, but deck getting is deck winning, right? So,
yeah, exactly. Well, you're right. You're losing a ton of shield value by that, but some decks have really weird winning strategies. Like for example, Messianic. If you can maybe run like 12 draw and just draw your pieces and not care.
Because you don't care about hitting a crit, huh?
Yeah, you don't. Yeah, some decks just don't care about the shield value either, right? Like for example, Nova Grappler Heroes, you could run 12 draw in that, and because Girly Dolly just makes every card you guard with basically have 10k more shield. So
I know they recently hit Pale Moon in both standard and premium, right, for Dorian. So I'm not sure how that loop deck does. But I think what's really interesting is this really helps Murakumo loop, right? Because what prevents them from looping is the cards that they need, this actual combo. And it's not really searchable in the same way. So maybe we can see 12 draw Murakumo and premium and it'd be viable.
Yeah, and I'd probably actually run it in spikes. The only reason like I wasn't running 12 draw already in spikes is because it was a 5k damage trigger, right? So
yeah, you really want the 10k defensive boost for sure.
Yeah, so that's another thing interesting to think about, right? When it comes to that. So hopefully they come up with more stuff like this. It's a double rare, so it takes a double rare slot, which is pretty good, but it seems like they're not going to be reprinting any draw triggers, so those might go up really in value on the market. So that's like a little bit of a worry for me. But we'll see where that goes, right? Hopefully they do something about it because these prices are ridiculous.
Yeah, I've noticed draw triggers have been going a lot higher. Like Aquaforce draw Pichus were like spiking for a bit prior to us deciding to stay indoors and play video games.
Yeah,
people were building Revan.
Yeah, exactly. That's crazy. And then also, of course, any meta deck draw PGs just go up automatically. Any favorite deck, let's say Bermuda Triangle, it went up. And of course, the all three of those clans, those drop PGs also went up, even though they're getting a ton more drop PGs went up. Yeah, it's
I didn't notice.
It's like 15 for Gear Chronicle, and they're going to be getting more in their starter decks. And on top of that, like Royal Paladin, a lot of people play Royal Paladins because it's the main character clan, and people are really excited about Altmile. And they're going to be getting more drop PGs because they're going to be having 4 in the Majesty Lord Blaster set. So that is pretty wild, right?
Interesting.
Yeah. So
hopefully they get 4 in the. They already have the list for the.
Yeah, they have the full list. Yes.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it looks pretty good. We don't know some of the card skills. And it has one order card, and that actually transition us to our next topic here, right? We're actually going to go over order cards. So it's pretty interesting what Bushiroad's decided to do, and they pick up slots, and so they have Blitz orders, and what's the other order called?
Are Blitz the one that you
normal orders? Yeah,
normal orders.
Yeah, Blitz orders and normal orders. I don't understand. I think it's ones you can use like during guard step, right? A Blitz order, but we only have one Blitz order right now, so when the card comes out, it'll be explained when it happens. But as far as right now, we have this to go on. So as far as the quick shield, right? Have you been playtesting with quick shield at all?
With quick shields, yes, not with any of the other ones.
Yeah.
So I personally believe in premium going second is much better for the most part, as long as you're not playing against like Ezel. So I've always enjoyed going second because it gives you an extra attack turn. It like forces your opponent to make the decision whether or not they should ride. Yeah. And that makes it really interesting because not only do you already have all that advantage, you get a card. So in premium, like it's really good. Have not tried it in standard yet. I think the logic would be similar, except, obviously they get their grade 3 turn first, meaning they get the extra card. So we'll see how much balance it has there. I haven't got a lot of chance to test standard post the ban list yet, so I haven't done any quick shield testing.
Yeah,
I am interested to see how deck lists change, because obviously this affects ratios. Because everyone knows like the 12s, 11s, 10s, sometimes 9. But like, how does this work from when we like build our decks? And I haven't seen an order for the main deck that makes me want to change my builds yet. But if they make something that's like, counterblast 1, draw 2,
yeah.
Clearly, I'm going to be playing it.
Yeah, of course. Anything you could like use a resource to get more resources, right? It's super good, right? And the thing is with a quick shield, so they did come out with them, and a lot of shops gave them out before we decided to stay home and play video games instead of going and play cards. And with that, it was pretty on hands. A lot of like my shop picked it up pretty quick, just having quick shields, because we just wanted something new. And going first really kind of is too strong, I think. So this just kind of helps mitigate it a little bit. And in my variation of it, I feel like it was more used for like discard fodder or just a quick 5k shield is just like, oh, whatever, because later in the game it doesn't really use except for just one card in your hand. But a lot of times people will actually forget to pick it up.
So I like using it as an early game guard for a 1-to-pass.
Yeah.
So a lot of people don't early game, and I think this is a huge misplay across players, where they don't boost their Vanguard because they're expecting the PG, they're expecting the 2-to-pass, whatever, for whatever reason. So like, let's say you're playing Mordred, having your second in main be able to swing behind Vanguard already makes it so that they can't 5k, 1-to-pass you. Right? Yeah. And that's huge. So I feel like since so many people don't do that, putting the 5k in front of like a Vanguard swing for a 1-to-pass does two things. One, it can make it so they don't hit you. Great. Two, even if they do hit the crit or whatever trigger, you're actually saving shield later on because they're using 10k power there as opposed to 10k power somewhere else. That 5k wouldn't block the 10k power somewhere else.
Yeah, that's understandable completely.
Yeah.
And that's a good way to look at it, actually. So when you bring that up as well, when you're using a quick shield for, let's say, that 1-to-pass, it kind of, you're more likely not to see a trigger early game as well. So it's also just a calculated thing when you're facing against your opponent sooner rather than later, because most decks seem to deck thin lately, right? Especially with Try 3, all those 3 decks deck thin a lot because they just search the deck for certain cards. So yeah, and if you guys don't know how to get a quick shield, they're going to be errating every old starter, but it's going to be all the new starters. If you're going second, right? If you ride in your opponent's grade 1, if you ride on top of your starter, you just get a quick shield, right? On top of also drawing a card for its actual usual starter skill.
Does it say grade 1 or grade 1 or greater?
I believe it was grade 1, but I'm not quite sure. They haven't printed the English cards yet. That would be really suck. It would suck really bad if you got grade stuck or something.
Yeah. That's what I'm thinking. That'd be interesting.
Or if your opponent could superior ride to grade 2, Bermuda Triangle, right? So
well, they'd have to still give you CB, right? So you'd have to be on grade 0, not ride. You swing into them.
No, I believe premium can just do it. It's absolutely weird. Yeah, they have some weird combo that you can ride from grade 1 to grade 2 on your first turn, like if you win first. Yeah, so maybe that's a weird counter. A quick shield broken. It's no longer good, right? And then the next one we actually have is revealed. This one seemed like a little more usable. It was our first normal blitz order. No, sorry, it's our first normal order card, right? And it's a Counterblast 2. During your turn, you give 20k to 1 unit for the rest of the turn. Now, people were like, well, 20k power is pretty good. If I'm going to use it to Counterblast anyway, for like Alt Mile, for example, I might as well just use this. And and people look into decks like they're not really reliant too much on Counterblast. Like they can throw this in and they can just also lose out on ride consistency, right? Not ride consistency, but just, you're losing a grade 2 slot, right? For this. You can only play it with your grade 2 or higher.
So I think this card is going to be very interesting for either restanding Vanguards or restanding Rearguards. But the issue with both of those things is they both use Counterblast, right? So let's say you're playing Beast Deities and you want to put it on like a Glance Dragon or on something that you'd restand with any of the other cards. You still need to be super Counterblast heavy. And you'd rather be using that Counterblast to restand, not to buff, right? But let's say you were doing it let's say Kagero has the most restanding Vanguards I can think of.
Or just having a waterfall hit. Or just have waterfall hit too.
Exactly, right? Yeah. But even then you'd want to use the Counterblast for extra crit, right? Because you can put the Gaia behind him.
Yeah.
So I do think that all the decks that I see this being good in are kind of Counterblast heavy. But I guess Kagero does have the option of Airmo, right? So they get a lot of CC.
They do that. They don't really have too many problems. I think people just throw Gaius away now, and for that deck, and they go Red Dive Griffin. So you basically have to take the crit, and then it's pretty good, right? And so if you add 20k, maybe that's overkill. Maybe it's a little bit overkill of a card. 20k.
I mean, this like I know we probably wouldn't do it, but Shadowfall Dragon, Danger Lunge, another 20k. It's already huge, right?
Yeah.
The idea is you stack on one side, you put it there, another 20k for 2 CB.
Yeah.
Oof. Yeah, I don't know if that's ideal.
But, why not though? If you're waiting that hard.
Yeah, I mean, I guess this could also be put on top of like the DP standard columns because they have force 2 and a crit already.
Yeah, for
Because
sure.
they put on Dyliner, right? So Dyliner is 35k for 3 crit.
Actually good in any
Now it's
Force 2 deck.
55.
Any
Yeah,
good
any force 2 deck, any good force 2 deck.
Yeah, and you can also use this in decks that don't like don't use much counterblast. I can think of Bermuda Triangle sometimes doesn't use that much counterblast in some situations.
Yeah, your only outs to counterblast right now in Bermuda, whether you're playing Melody or Riv, is A Riv or B Sonata. So
yeah, and sometimes they have a lot of countercharging options as well, which is quite hilarious. So that's pretty unique. And also with blitz orders being a thing, people really worry about right consistency, because what if you have this in your hand? Can you G assist? And the answer is yes. Like
yes.
if it's your only grade 2 in your hand, you can G assist with this. And then that's another great thing. These order cards, like the blitz order, quick shield, it could be fodder for your G assist. So there you go. That's another thing to use it for, right?
Or your PGs.
Or your PGs, right? That's great. And so you don't have to worry about too much right consistency, which actually helps out a lot of decks. And then the last order that came out is Tactics of Knowledge, Stout's Arm Chapter, which is an act, cast, Counterblast 3, Soul Blast 3, and then you draw 3 cards, and then your front row gets 10k.
Yeah, so this card's super interesting because I think CB3 is a huge cost. Like
yes.
Any CB3 is like by itself insane.
Yeah.
Soul Blast 3, if you think about it, technically any deck can Soul Blast 3 on 3 because you have 0, 1, 2 in Soul if you don't spend it. Drawing 3 is insane. Like
yeah.
That's absolutely busted. Technically you're plusing 2, right? Because this card was in your hand.
Yeah, but you're also getting power as well, which is
yeah. The 10k to 3 front row units is interesting. So which means you have to have units. So make sure you move your units up if you don't have a board, and then come back down.
Well, the problem is you probably, let's say this is like your only card in hand, you have no board, so you have to like draw this to draw a board, right?
So it's important to know that those units don't get power.
Yeah,
this is like Cecilia play. Remember, if you have boosters, move them up when you play this card, and move them back down after.
Yeah.
I think this card's kind of ridiculous. I don't see it being played. If it is, I can't see it being played more than 2. Maybe I'm wrong. Someone's gonna break it.
Yeah,
but
I can.
It's very strong.
Yeah, I'm sure a lot of decks I can think of right now that like Messianic. I'm really big on these fun decks.
Yeah, I get it. CB decks.
Yeah, and this just makes up for Field Feather Dragon. So some Royal Paladin decks could run this in general, just because also the power is just very good to have in your front row, and like Dark Irregulars because you can easily countercharge, and you're gonna soul charge anyway. You can put those cards right back in the soul if you soul charge them with the grade 2, the new one, Emblem Master. And yeah, it's great for that sort of thing.
I want its CB though, because don't they need it for their freestand?
They do, but you have lots of ways of countercharging. You have in standard you have like basically two ways, but the best way is Killer Tail. You're only gonna be using Killer Tail, for that counter charge. You have Authority of Water if you really want to run that. That's if your opponent gets retired, you can just counter charge 1. That's just basically free. And for premium, you have Stand Cats, right? So
Cat's great.
Yeah, Cat's amazing. But you lose Soul, but whatever, right? They figured that out. This is an interesting order card. Actually, I didn't think about too much what this would be good for in premium sets, and I think it could be used as some sort of backup. But yeah,
No, it's definitely interesting.
Definitely an interesting card, especially the fact that it just powers up the front row for whatever, right?
So I think that 10k power up's interesting, but there are new cards coming out like. For Neos as an example, they give your Vanguard like over I think 10k power, 15k power for the rest of the turn, like the new Antero.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
I know. I think the 10k threshold is becoming less and less a big thing.
Yeah.
Because Vanquisher gives us all front row 10k, which means your defensive triggers are now the first one's kind of negated.
Yeah, exactly. And then also another thing with Asha coming out, the plant tokens copy your Vanguard's power. So if you give power to the front row, really you just need to give power to your Vanguard. It has nothing to do with the other cards. So I guess you lose a little bit of options like that. And that's kind of... It doesn't seem too useful right now, but maybe they'll release more stuff later where it is useful. right?
Mm.
That's the thing. And then they're also releasing. I don't remember the name for it, but it's in Majesty Lord Blaster. They're releasing an order card. We don't know anything about it other than they're just putting 3 in the deck, in the structure deck.
Do we have the art for it? Can we pull up the art?
No, there's no art. There's no art. Yeah, and but the name was like lights and dark, so I'm pretty sure it's only like Majesty Lord Blaster stuff going on.
Sir, if you have a Shadow Paladin and Royal Paladin card, please search out 2 grade 2 units.
Yeah, yeah, probably. Hopefully, it's good, and maybe it's usable in other things. Now, a nice thing I like about these is that everyone's gonna want these order cards, and there's gonna be shiny ones. Apparently, like the Power Rise Elixir that was shown in like trial decks for Japan, and they have those shiny, right? Nice. So those will be nice, right? You have more bling. People like the max rarity all their decks, so you can throw this in there too while you're at it. And hopefully we have that for everybody. Please, more shiny cards. And now I wanted to kind of wrap this up and talk about sort of the lost meta we kind of have with us wanting to stay inside and play video games instead of going out and play cards. So with standard, I mean, I think everyone kind of knows what would happen in the results right now is that pretty much Murakami, Revan, and X A tier plus deck, right, would be like really good for Springfest. We're probably missing on some things, especially that going on, but it's interesting that we lost like basically kind of a lot of tops going on, a lot of tournaments.
Yeah, so I think we all know Vanguard best deck. That deck has literally everything: power, draw, hand advantage, like removal. The deck is absolutely insane. I think Revan is like a much more fun deck. It's very enjoyable to play. You know, obviously it's grade 2 turns, super explosive. And then Revan also has hand advantage unless you run into someone running like some errant copies of GBD. I think the correct play, if you play against any sort of Narukami player, is just disrespect GBD. Just tell them they don't run it, and then commit your board. Obviously, they're going to bind a few cards, but I'd rather push out cards from their hand and let them have the option to combo off and get multiple restands and more attacks. Because your defensive triggers are not as good against Narukami as they used to be. But for like that third deck, I think people are sleeping on the fact that Bermuda's still strong. Obviously, you can only Riviera once per turn, but they still get hand advantage. They still have consistency. Yeah. They can mix with Melody. Don't forget now, Sonata and Lisa Lot is free, so you can turn one Lisa Lot into a Sonata, and that is 3 attacks that swing through a defensive trigger early game.
It's pretty good, yeah. And
just be prepared.
Yeah, and I feel like they're making a force meta just by releasing a lot of force cards coming soon, right? And force decks getting a lot more support. And it's kind of strange because a lot of Vanguard right now still seems like the top decks are turn 3 or 4. No, just turn 3 or 4 and you win, right? And so it's not just Excel, it's like Mordred, it's Claret, it's Bermuda, it's Murakami, it's any deck that can also do that, right? Or deal with that. And just going fast in this game is good. It's always whatever your opponent's win strategy is to, like, let's say get a bunch of force markers, and then you're going to use your grade 5 Valkyrian, and then you're just like, oh, I'm unbeatable now, but you beat him before that. You don't have to care about that, right? And it seems that they're also trying to balance the game a little more, where your opponent has to be grade 3 in order for you to either use a skill or get a benefit of it, such as the new Gear Chronicle card for next stage. And it's just a little slower than people would like. But yeah,
I mean, but they've been doing that, right? They did the same thing with Mordred. You don't get the restand unless you're on grade 3. They did the same thing with Revan. So I think the whole having your opponent have to be on grade 3 requirement makes sense. But slowing down the game one turn doesn't do a lot. I think the issue is like Vanguard as a game is getting stronger and stronger, and like even in premium, we're seeing a lot more decks be standard plus.
Yeah.
So I feel that the newer cards are much more powerful than the older cards. Like not across the board, but like a lot of the best decks. Let's look at the last set of premium meta before the ban list. We had Ezreal, Di, and Neos. And all of those decks featured a lot of standard cards. I mean, some cards had more premium than not, but a lot of their win cons were standard. Ezreal, NLK, well, Katrina's not standard,
Mhm.
but Trailing Rose is the best card to ride. So
Yeah.
I think that we're just keep on getting faster, and this is like an interesting idea into like Vanguard history, right?
Mhm.
We like seem to go back and forth between Force and Excel metas based on card quality, and people can argue that there were points where we had a Protect meta because OTT was the best
That was
deck.
it was just
But
OTT
it wasn't.
meta. Yeah.
But it wasn't about Protect, right? It wasn't the marker that was overpowered. It was the fact that OTT had better card quality.
Yeah.
My friends say this a lot, but like their cards were just better at the time.
That
And once
absolutely.
better cards were printed, the
Absolutely.
deck wasn't as good.
Yeah.
Obviously, I think people are sleeping on how good Sukiyomi can be. Muhammad in Europe does really well with that deck. But like even with like some success with Angels, I know Angels was really good like for a long time. And I wasn't playing during that time. But like right now, like people are playing more aggressive Angels and they're just like getting used to the meta. I don't know if we like fully solved what needs to happen. I know there are situations where very rarely you want to go Excel 1, but maybe that 5k extra power will actually clinch the game out that turn.
Yeah.
You should be flexible in changing your strategy. Like deciding to go Force 2 when you're a Force 1 deck, it does happen. I've been in a game with Mordred where I decided to put out 3 Force 2 markers and swing for game when my friend was on grade 2.
That's so
it
funny.
Happens.
Yeah.
It happens. Yeah. Because you just have full columns. They have little cards in hand. They're 4 damage because of some early crits.
Yeah.
Like, why not?
The same thing with Riviera. You just go Force 2 Riviera, just re-ride. So yeah, they have to take something.
I like Force 2 Riviera a lot. I think it's a very spicy thing.
It's a spicy thing if they're at 4 damage, right? Because you run, you hit them with a crit early, and then they're screwed, right? And then with Premium, we didn't really get much changing with the ban list, except for Gold Paladin did get knocked down a little bit.
They're still playable. They're still super viable. Just not the best deck in my opinion.
It's kind of weird. We don't really have much of a loss to meta because it was kind of similar as it was before, other than just a lot of decks that can deal with Gold Paladin. Because I think a lot of decks built to only beat Gold Paladin are kind of out because you don't see as much.
I agree with that. So I think the biggest thing is obviously Gold Paladin is not the best deck, and I would go as far as say that currently DI is definitely the best deck.
Sure,
Shout out to Nikki, China, and everybody who likes playing them. I think Neos is still top 3. The deck is absolutely amazing, and it's getting the most support in the next sets. So really hoping to see Neos players out there doing well. Shout out to Seiji. But for other decks that are viable, I mean, people sleep on Kagero. The deck has amazing G guards. Obviously, we know people are going to start playing Gears more because of Force Marker on Chronojet.
Yeah,
so that deck is great.
I heard there's some really good spicy stuff with that, and I definitely expect to see Noman and some players pulling it out. So hopefully Ochiko comes out of retirement and shows everyone. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and then Gears has a kind of like a weird topic. Gears has a really weird effect on people, or even main clans, but specifically Gears, is that people come out of the woodworks when they hear the word Chronojet. Yeah.
So a lot of fan loyalty, right? Like it inspires a lot of people to play.
Yeah, because they do have interesting interactions and stuff like that. And that's why I personally like the deck in Standard, and I probably would like it in Premium too. And it's just very interesting. It's very different from every other deck, right?
It plays very differently.
For sure.
I think Brave is going to see a resurgence. Obviously, everyone knows about the Mark Doe meme, and I love it to death. It was very enjoyable for a while. Hopefully, it comes back after this video. But I know a lot of my locals love Brave, and it had some performance. So let's see if it comes back. I know there was some spice cards that people are using for grade 2s that CB1 get 10k becomes a 20k grade 2 by itself, and you want to use your CB anyway. So I'm excited to see what alt-mile builds come out of this.
Oh, dude, what people are doing? They're running a Kane, okay? And then
Kane, the Pongle searcher?
Yeah, they use Pongle, and then they soul charge a Not Mile from the top of the deck. If they have to sack it, right? and then all their grade 2s get a crit, right?
Okay. So speaking of a Kane and Pongle, if you guys don't know, I love budget Vanguard because it's easy to get people into the game. And Soul Saver is one of my favorite decks. Yeah. It's not budget anymore, but Soul Saver is one of my favorite decks of all time. And at some point, I'm not sure if it's already happened, we're getting a grade 2 promo.
Yeah.
Even better.
Yeah.
And so I got the promo when I was in Japan, but if we get it here, it makes the deck even more viable. So if you're trying to spike locals, Force 2 Soul Saver is still a deck, and I strongly believe in it.
Yeah.
And it gets even better with the 30k crits.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So let's see how that goes.
That is good, yeah. Interesting. Okay. Another thing that's really great about Alt Mile is that a lot of decks have to run basically 4-ofs, to make the deck actually do what it does. And this deck,
But
you
almost does
don't.
that.
You just
It
run
does
like
super
2 or
cool.
3 of everything.
So I think it's really interesting, right? Because 4-ofs is consistency, right? We want to see copies. The lowest I'd ever run any card in a deck is 2, just because I'm always scared of soul charging or damaging a card and not having access to it.
Guaranteed.
3 I only run if I like don't want to splash it, which is 2 of, and it's not good enough for 4. So 3 is kind of like I want this card, but I'm like ambivalent towards it. It's sort of when you have like you're running 11 grade 2s, your worst grade 2s you're 3 of, or your worst grade 1s you're 3 of. That's how I view it. So the fact that Altmal lets you have a tutorable deck, and I think that's something that Gears does really well, right? Have very tutor heavy decks is something that we're going to see like a huge change in how standard and premium's played. I mean, obviously I play Katrina, right? So all my cards are tutorable, but we want 4 of everything, so we just want access to everything.
Yeah. And And another thing I'm actually really just more excited about than any of those, it seems super vanilla, but it brings up all the power level of every deck because it rises consistency, is the new grade 1 triple Rs. They're the old stride fodder, and like Dragon's Vanity, all those decks got them. Astral Force, they just skipped it for some reason, but now they're going to have them again, which is just on place, check top 5 for a grade 3, and then grab it and discard a card if you did grab one, right? So it increases consistency in every single clan, and every clan might want to run a few of these because I feel like a lot of decks have sort of a thing where if they don't ride the right grade 3, they just feel bad or possibly just lose because they lose tempo, right?
Yeah, no, it makes sense. I think that card is really good. Like that set of cards.
Yeah, I'm sad they're triple rare though. I'm sad they're triple rare. They shouldn't be triple rare.
What's funny is triple rares weren't expensive, right, for a long time, and now it seems that triple rares are spiking.
Well, it depends on the triple rare, right?
That's fair. Right?
That's right. Like this last set, all those decks are really good, but this next set, like no one cares. Like no, like right? The triple rares people just don't care about because it's like, oh, it's Artemis, like whatever, right? Because that's an old one, right? They still make cards like that. But when it's like a card you're gonna run 4 of in your main deck for sure, and then you probably want to run it for other variants of decks, it's gonna be very wanted, and so supply's gonna be low, demand's gonna be high. It's gonna be a $20 card for everything, and we only got it for like Aqua Force, Murakami, and Shadow Paladin. And I mean, Shadow Paladin's very popular, don't get me wrong, but they're not the most popular clans. You know, Royal Paladin's gonna have big issues with that. You know, Gears is gonna have big issues with that. We're glad we're getting those right away, and then Bermuda is gonna want those as well. So yeah, and it's just a blanket good thing that they're adding to Vanguard, and it's like they took a book out of Weiss-Schwarz, because if anyone plays Weiss-Schwarz, everything is something like I play a card, I ditch a card, I pick up a card, right? So this sort of kind of has that sort of consistency viable also with that, and not to mention that you're also deck thinning at the same time when you're playing Vanguard, which you're doing this sort of thing, you actually get the grade 3 at the top of the deck. So that's also why it's good.
No, I can see that.
Yeah. Do you have anything else to say about like Lost Meta or anything you want to talk about at all?
So I've definitely missed the tournament scene. I was getting very active for the last couple months before all this happened. I think that right now we need to turn to CFA. I know like Boucher released some sort of like remote play thing. Yeah. But I'm not a fan of playing through like video chat. I know Vision's throwing some CFA tournaments, and other communities throwing CFA tournaments, so definitely tune in. I know me and Sage will be commenting a few of them. I am excited to see, because we're using CFA, you're allowed to use cards that aren't necessarily released yet. I'm excited to see what people experiment with. I don't expect any of the major teams to release their spice. Like I don't expect WCC players or Strictly Broken players, or obviously Vision's running the tournaments that we're studying. But I don't expect to see any of those players releasing what they might want to hold off for like Kara season. Because like when singles rolls around, people like putting out new stuff. So I'm really curious what the community is playing, because different tech is like what make builds better. When we first started playing Neos, we weren't running PGs, and eventually we all switched over to running Loga. and my locals told me about it before anyone was playing it. So
Yeah,
definitely, even though the meta is the meta, not like there's so many cards in Vanguard, so just be aware.
yeah, absolutely. That sounds great. I really miss my locals too, even though my locals doesn't exactly run every week, even before this whole thing happened, right? But I do miss playing with a lot of people, right?
So it's definitely a huge change in pace, but definitely everyone's stay safe, stay healthy.
Yeah, stay safe, stay healthy, and actually take this time to sort of look over your deck, and that's why people are playing a lot on CFA, and so it's actually time to kind of have a little bit more fun. Reason why some people don't even know what that is in Vanguard anymore, right? But we can have a lot more fun with what we're actually playing with and what you actually want to do. I mean, we at Vision would like people to be, play what they want and play what's good, but we don't mind people just playing what they think is fun in a tournament. And sometimes what they think is fun is also good, right?
I do remember in some of the early Vision tournaments, a Blue Wings player won the tournament.
Oh, yeah, that's big.
And I believe in Blue Wings because heals are stands. So,
yeah.
Play what you want to.
All right, sweet. I think we're just pretty good to wrap everything up. So, again, thank you everyone for watching. I'm Sage from Vision, and then we also have Deo from Vision. Peace out. Guys.